Hey guys, Dominic Neshi here with the great Sam Assaad. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Mate, so good of you to join the Wealthi team last year.
Feels good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You enjoying it?
Yeah, so far so good.
So far.
Yeah, surprises.
Surprises. Now, everybody out there, some of you met Sam, those that haven't, too bad for you, you will soon. Sam, we feel great about him joining the team because he's come with a wealth of experience. See what I did there? Yeah, not that funny. But Sam has come from Melbourne. He is a property developer. He's worked in real estate for 10 plus years.
Yep, 10 years.
His family's been in property development. You could say that property runs in his veins. As a property consultant specialist, he really does have a wealth of experience to bring to clients. And I just love having this man around, bringing him to sites and getting his opinion on stuff. You're helping us find good quality real estate, and even just asking better quality questions when we're with developers, the builders, and you can kind of see through the bullshit, which is awesome to see. So Sam, without me, I'll just shut up now. I would love to hear a little bit more about yourself, like what kind of brought you into real estate and a little bit about your experience and stuff.
Well, it's funny you say that because before I got into real estate, my family actually wasn't even dabbling into the property market. So I got out of high school and I went straight into real estate sales, and I did that for a few years, then got into development sales. I worked directly for a developer in Melbourne CBD. He built a few towers in Melbourne, and I was his only guy in terms of selling the apartments, and I did that for 5 years. And I made some good cash, some good coin in my early 20s. All my mates were all flying overseas in Europe, and I just had this big ambition to be some kind of property superstar, and I think I did considerably well, and I got excited. So what I did is I got some inspiration from the developer I was working with, and I thought, well, if you can do it, why can't I? And I did that. At 26, I had about 3 development sites. I acquired 3 development sites. One was already building, 2 were in planning, and I did that between the ages of, let's say, 26 to about 29. I slowed down completely. I won some and I lost some, I guess, along the way, and there was a lot of lessons learned being a developer. So, and yeah, it got me back into property sales. I think my original bread and butter, I would call it. And yeah, it's just I've been exposed to a lot in the property industry, from sales to acquisition to development to design to project management. Yeah, just an all-rounder. If you don't, I think just an all-rounder.
Sam's pretty humble as well. He doesn't want to give too much away, I see, because, you know, he's saying, I slowed down wins and losses. I can say that there's more wins than losses because I've seen some of the properties that he has developed, and I can promise you they are beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at some of the designs of the stuff that you are doing now, currently, and they're stunning, and they're not in shitty areas.
No.
They're in good areas in Melbourne.
No, I was lucky enough to acquire these sites in the heat of the market, but it's still affordable, and there was still a lot of demand for housing supply in those areas. But Melbourne is very different to Sydney when it comes to design, and I personally wanted to be involved into specific designs that would that are not just the cookie cutter, just the builder's range standard crap that we see here in Sydney. Sorry. But I wanted to be a part of designs that would, that are forward thinking and that are quite sustainable. That in 5 to 10 years' time, you're still living in a trendy apartment, in an apartment whereby things that have over evolved outside your apartment and that are still current. And that was one of my goals as a developer.
See, that's refreshing because, in Sydney, development has almost gotten this bad reputation because I won't name any names, but there are a few key big development companies and even a lot of no-name developers that don't have the same level. I'd call them construction companies.
Yeah.
You know, they are looking to get the highest possible margin on every development. And you'll know this better than most, that in order to go for quality, in order to go spend money on design and get away from that builder's range, and for all of you out there, builder's range is effectively the cheapest stuff, the flat pack stuff, the stuff that's easy
Bunnings.
Bunnings.
Go to Bunnings and buy 30 of each and put it into a home and call that a quality bespoke home. And that was quite shocking when I first came to Sydney. You know, the guys here call me a Melbourne snob, but I think I know why, and I think I am biased because I am from Melbourne. But when I first moved to Sydney and I saw what was offered here in Sydney for a whole lot more, I honestly was so shocked. There was carpets in living rooms.
He won't let it go.
I couldn't believe it. For new developments, carpets in living rooms, and they were nearly sold out. And I'm just like, what is going on? It's shocking. And for anyone to think, then why am I in Sydney? Sydney's got some good beaches, and I moved up here for a good weather and change of scenery. But my money's still in Melbourne.
See, Sam's right. Sam's absolutely right. To find quality, you've got to search really hard in Sydney.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's just go and use a number. You know, if we've got clients now and they're looking to spend $650,000 in Sydney, you're going to be buying a good quality investment if you're very careful. But you're looking sort of 35 kilometers out of the CBD to get like a townhouse. If you're going to buy an apartment, you're going to you'll be closer to the CBD. But the quality is going to be maybe a couple steps above the builder's range if you've worked hard, done your research, and you've got the right people on your side, okay? Now, in Melbourne, $650,000 gets you what?
Can get you a house.
You can get your house, firstly.
But in comparison, can get you an upmarket build, can get you quality that's really unmatched.
DKO Architects.
Yeah, and we're there's a lot of brand awareness down in Melbourne. Not everyone, don't get me wrong. There's, you know, the Bazza and his ute and Mario and, you know, and his dodgy bricklayers, etc., etc. But what I'm talking about is when you are buying in developments that are quite reputable, the quality is competitive, and developers want to be known for their quality, and not because they know it's going to get sold. They want to be known for the quality that they are providing. And 650,000 can get you something 10, 12 kilometers north of Melbourne CBD at high-end quality. And guess what? Timber floors is not an upgrade option.
No, timber floors is not an upgrade option. You know, blinds should not be an upgrade option.
Yeah.
All inclusive should be the fucking standard.
10 mil stone bench tops is not an upgrade option.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a rip-off. And it's just the little things. I know these are the little things, and they might not make your investment, returns any different. But for longevity and for the sake of, you know, you having a long-standing investment that will last without costing you an arm and a leg, you know, in 3, 4, 5 years in cosmetic upgrades, I think Melbourne is ahead. But Sydney is generally a first option for
overseas migration.
For migration. Yeah. It's usually a first option for people that want to be, you know, beachside. There are lifestyle factors that play into the value of properties here that Melbourne is quite lacking. But it makes up for it in different attributes.
Sydney's interesting that we have geographical constraints. It's very difficult to develop here. There's certain supply side constraints that are in Sydney that Melbourne doesn't have.
Yeah.
I feel like Melbourne's a big sprawling city. Like the ripple goes north, east, west, south. Like it goes everywhere.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas Sydney's very particular, and Sydney doesn't feel like one city. It feels like 3 or 4 cities.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my clients, and when I am showing Melbourne property, it's very straightforward with Melbourne because Melbourne's quite centralised. You've got north, east, southwest, and that's it. You've obviously got your regional towns, but here in Sydney, there are a lot of different factors. You've got Sydney CBD, then you've got Parramatta CBD, which I know now is receiving another $2 billion upgrade of facelifts, and then you've got the regional towns that are trying to be self-catered. And so I think when investing here, there's a lot to take into account as opposed to Melbourne, which is a lot more simpler. You know, there is a ripple effect. The ones in central are quite hot, and as you go further out, they're cheaper, and in time when they get hot, you just go out to the suburbs afterwards. That might be a problem for Melbourne in 20, 30 years' time, but for investors today, it's something to really take into consideration. And I'm a big believer, and I know I'm sounding biased. There are definitely some really good investment opportunities here in Sydney, but I think Melbourne should be a front runner of an option if you've got that subpar of 600 to 700, 700 to 800K, and you want to get some good value.
Yeah, I agree. If you've got $800,000, and certainly if you're using equity in an investment, you're not using your first home buyer's grant or anything, and you're a Sydney-based investor.
Yeah.
Melbourne represents amazing opportunities because we've worked on some sites where you're spending $700,000 and the amenity that you're getting, the quality, the design is on par to $3 million terraces here in Sydney. I went and inspected a site just yesterday, a $5 million site. They're using same sort of fluted glass treatments, same kind of like waterfall edge, like that kind of stuff that you're seeing at nearly $5 million terrace here.
Yeah.
Was being delivered in that Essendon site that we were working on.
Yeah.
It's still available, but in Melbourne. So certainly from a quality standpoint, I also believe that Melbourne, I think it's interesting, maybe just culturally, like people in Melbourne know what milk brand the barista is using and where the beans are come from. And I think that attention to detail maybe is translating into other parts. Maybe it's fashion conscious, or as you said, brand name conscious. And if you're going to go spend $700,000, you want to know that it's going to be a brand.
Look, we are very cosmopolitan down there, and we're coffee snobs, and we've got a good cafe culture. We've got a good our fashion scene and our alleyways, and there is just some really good cool attributes to Melbourne. And I feel that because of that culture, it translates into reputable developers, giving that kind of that matching that trendiness into their developments. I mean, I know developers have got car wash stations, co-working stations, have got dog wash bays, and now we've got electric car charging stations, click and collect, all in the basement of your new developments. And for a quarter of the body corporate. And if you were to get anything like this in Sydney, it's like worse than a mortgage payment.
They've got theatre rooms, they've got like virtual golfing, they've got like
it's nuts.
Proper meeting rooms.
And do you know what, Dom? Like developers don't need to go to that extent.
They don't.
And they don't have to spend that extra $2, $3, $4 million in amenities, but they do. And they do because they want people, there's competition down there, and they want people to pick their home through them. As opposed to Sydney, I feel they don't need to. And I feel like because they don't need to... They don't. The standard here in Sydney is that. Oh, doesn't matter if it doesn't have that. I'm happy with that. And I feel like people are being coerced into buying shit. And and it shocks me. Actually shocks me. Look, don't get me wrong. There are some really nice developments here in Sydney.
You just got to work really hard to go and find them.
Yeah, but you have to, really pay in excess, of $2, $3, $4 million to get something really sexy. And in Melbourne, you don't. But the penthouse collection is probably equivalent to a larger 2-3 bedroom option here in Sydney. And I think that's just a really simpler way of really just trying to compare the both. So that's why I'm thinking, well, when I speak to Sydney clients and they want to invest, just weigh up your options. And yes, it's not always about the stone bench tops and, how, where your timber floors are from. Are they from,
handmade bricks from Sweden or something.
It's not about that. But what I'm saying is I think it should be a good front runner because you don't have to buy in your own backyard.
It's a valid point. And look, please don't walk away from this podcast thinking that we don't think that Sydney is a good investment market, because it's an excellent investment market. There's many, many good opportunities out there. What we are really saying on this podcast today is that per dollar spent, the quality that you get in Melbourne, generally speaking, is better than Sydney.
For sure.
So if you're going to spend your $800,000, the quality that you'll get for $800K is basically the equivalent of 2 million plus in Sydney.
And just from an investment point of view, we talk about what are factors of growth of property. You got population. We've got leading economists saying that there's going to be double-digit growth for Melbourne this year, and then we're on track to surpass the population of Sydney by 2030. And I think these are a major key factors as to, if you buy now, you're going to see your property double in 10 years' time, because whether we like it or not, Sydney's already dense as it is, hence why it all goes up. And Melbourne is on track to be like Sydney, but it's not there yet. So that means there is an opportunity to go up and to have your own portion of land if you really wanted to. Here, apartments is, your first option if you want to be, say, in 10 kilometers from the city, and you've got a budget of $1 million, and $1 million is still good money in Melbourne.
$1 million is a lot of money, and it doesn't get you a lot in Sydney. You've got to be careful. Weigh up your options. Let's talk about a specific deal. Like, don't go too minutia, but like, what's a deal recently that you really liked? One or two deals that you thought, hey, this is just.
In Melbourne?
Sydney? No, Melbourne.
Okay, Melbourne. So, for example, we're selling a townhouse product out in Essendon. And Essendon is classified as what we call Toorak of the West. And if anyone doesn't know Toorak is the most affluent suburb in Melbourne, equivalent to probably, say, a Vaucluse.
Vaucluse, yeah.
But Vaucluse is more expensive because of the water. But the Toorak of the West, for example, in Essendon, you can still buy 2-3 bedroom townhouses there of high-end quality, subpar of $850,000 to $950,000, which is about 6-7 kilometres out from the city. Now, Essendon is the halfway point between Melbourne CBD and Melbourne Airport. Now, if I was to do a comparison of something that, of something for Sydney, I would say, let's just throw Lane Cove. I know Lane Cove is about 10 kilometres, but I wanted to find a townhouse to live in Lane Cove. And I found a 2-bedroom townhouse, same spec, for about $2.3 million. Now, I know Lane Cove has got its, own merits, but just for, apples and oranges' sake, why would you not go closer to the CBD from an investment standpoint, and get the same quality in an established area, in an area whereby the median price average is $1.6 million, but you're buying at $850, $900. So there's room to grow there.
Can I add to that? So just as a reference point, the median is 1.6, but there are many, many houses being sold in that area where they're 5, 6, 7, 10, $20 million estates in Essendon. Similar to Lane Cove, there's multi-million dollar houses. Yeah. So you can have at the end of your street a $10 million house, and then a development like ones that we're doing. You've got an $850,000 terrace, which is outstanding,
decked out,
as good as you can possibly ask for from a underground basement. I said earlier, like bricks, handmade bricks from Denmark, I think it is, like ridiculous levels quality.
And again, they don't have to import bricks from Denmark.
No,
but they do, and it's part of their
legacy, their pride.
And it's part of the appeal of the development. And homeowners, I was saying to the team, everyone watches The Block these days, and people are getting picky, and there's some buyer awareness out there, and people want to know that what they live in is something of worth, and Melbourne at times, most times, with reputable developers, live up to that. And if not, there's going to be other private guys, and they'll make them redundant, if they don't keep up that kind of quality. So,
it's people like you, like the average. Not to say no name, but you didn't create a brand as a developer, but you still went the extra mile with the design, the aesthetic, who you're working with, and what you're creating.
For sure.
And there are many young, inspired, hungry developers in that Melbourne market that are hot on the heels of your Tim Gurners and stuff that want to make a name for themselves.
And for example, Tim Gurner has. I remember his Fortitude development in Brisbane. He went spent towards the end of the development $8 million in an infinity pool, etc., etc. Now that wasn't part of the sale. That was never included as a feature or an amenity, but he did it anyway. He could have cashed in that $8 million. This is just an example of what developers want to do to try to upkeep, their names. So. Look, I know I sound biased, but not all.
You are, but it's okay. It's okay.
But not all developers in Melbourne are of that quality.
Certainly not. So don't go run out there and just buy some random
for sure.
crap. We're not telling you to just go throw a dart at the board in Melbourne and buy something random, because you still have every opportunity to get burnt. We're doing a lot of work and research. Sam is a developer. He knows what it takes to get it done. So when we're qualifying stock or real estate, apartments, townhouses, houses, a guy that's physically paid checks, ordered, materials and lodged plans with council is qualifying that before making that as a recommendation. So I don't know what more you could ask for as a client.
For sure. And on an honest note, when I said before I won some and I lost some, there's instances where I've lodged to council and it took me, a year and a half to 2 years for an approval, which ate away, my time and, cash in the account. And there was a lot of lessons learned. I went too hard, too quick, and I wanted to be something. But back then I defined success as differently to what I define success now, and I feel as though what did stay the same was I wanted to, develop some really good quality stuff. And some of it, stood, and some of it I had to let go, and some of it I kept as well. So. So I think in terms of development, it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is, but I've been there and worked with a lot of lot of consultants with design, traffic, landscaping. It was all very important to make, you know, something very sustainable and very on trend, if you want to call it.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to harp on about it because, you know, you and I could sit and just talk about development all day, but you and I have got some things to do. So, look, thank you for sharing your story. I hope to have you more on the podcast, and it's so good seeing you and watching you talk to clients, and the wisdom that you're giving them has come at no small expense to you personally.
For sure.
You know, so anyone out there that's listening to this podcast that's, you know, felt like they got a little bit of value or inspired or want to know more about the Melbourne market or want to, you know, pick Sam's brain, feel free to reach out, say hey. He's on all the social medias. And he's an incredibly good-looking man, so make sure you follow him on Instagram as well. So yeah, thank you. It's good. It's good to have you on the show.
It's going to be a big year for us, and I'm really super excited. You know, for the year to come.
So, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope to hear from you all soon.